Hello all, welcome to the Consistently OK podcast, a podcast where we dive into all things pop culture related from comics to films and everything in between. My name's Luke.
I'm Nick.
Join us every week for a podcast that doesn't set its bar too high or too low, but rather keeps it at a consistently OK level for your enjoyment. You can lead it. No, I'll start. All right, I'm not going to say what I'm not going to say. Hello everyone. So here we are with our latest podcast, and today we are going to talk about the Snyder Cut, and I am joined as always by Nick.
Hello.
A very special guest in Harry. Hello, Harry.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, splendid. Yeah, just ready for some chat.
Excellent.
For sure.
And Nick, how are you?
I'm all good, mate. You know, same old. I forgot to tell you, by the way, just because we talked about Scott Snyder a couple of podcasts ago, got the Noctera PDF sent through today on the Kickstarter. Yeah, I don't know if you got it as well.
No, I haven't got it.
I've tried to like pace myself with it because I thought I don't want to read it all digitally. I want to read it as a physical.
Yeah.
And so I just read like the first couple of pages. The art's awesome. Story's really cool. It's also interesting to hear Scott talk about how he formatted the script.
Wow.
So yes, I'm quite excited for that to arrive.
Nice. I haven't checked actually. Maybe it is.
I assume they've sent it to everyone, unless Scott just sent it to me. You know,
it's likely. He probably loved the podcast.
Personal message. No, nice. Did you say it was? You got a preview?
Yeah. So he did a book on Kickstarter, and because they've sort of finished the Kickstarter now, they sent the PDF of the book through.
Oh, so you got the whole book?
Yeah. So
nice.
It. Yeah.
Fair play. Like it.
God, we love it. We love our Snyders, don't we?
Oh yeah. Good.
Scott,
good
Zack.
lead in.
Nice. Almost like it were planned.
Before we do jump into it, though, Harry, as you're new
Yes.
to the podcast, people might not know who you are. So, introduce yourself.
Right. My name is Harry.
Good.
What do people want to know?
Your name is Harry Snyder.
My name is Harold of House Snyder, and I shall be joining the podcast today to discuss my father, Zack Snyder. No, I don't know what to tell people. I guess I've known Luke and Nick for a long while now. Keen, avid listener of the podcast, and very up for sharing my opinion on this topic, I guess. Yeah, I'm glad of the invite. I will say at this point as well, I have listened to all the episodes thus far, and I'm thoroughly enjoying them as well. So, good stuff, fellas.
I thought you were about to go, I've listened to all of them, and I do have some critiques. So here we go.
Yeah, I have a list with me.
Number one.
If I can have just 10 minutes of your time.
Well, you're also a very talented artist, Harry. You did not mention that in your introduction.
Well, thank you. Yes, as well, I dabble in the dark arts. So there's that also, yeah. But yes, more so keen to discuss Zack Snyder's Justice League, which hasn't come out yet. Oh, also, as well, I realised...
It has come out, hasn't it? Let's face it.
Ooh, controversial.
Ish.
Wobbling a line.
Well, 50-50, right? But no, I was going to say, like, we're like on the ball recording this, but we're like going to be a few weeks behind when this is released, or a week behind.
2 weeks.
Is this
2 weeks?
So,
2 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were recording this on the 18th of November, and it will be 2 weeks from today. Whatever.
You
day
said that
is.
then, like you didn't know. You like made up that we were recording on that day. Like
Well,
we're recording on the 18th of November.
Oh, we can. If it was wrong, we can go back, right, Nick? We can edit that shit.
Yeah.
We can edit that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 weeks from now, this will be going out. So who knows where we'll be in the future when this is released?
I don't know either.
I might be long gone.
I don't say that.
You've got to stick around. You got Miles Morales to play.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some slow motion Zack Snyder films.
What more could you want? Okay, so let's
do this.
start. First of all, I think a good starting place would be let's discuss briefly our thoughts on Man of Steel, considering that's the start of what is dubbed as the Snyder-Verse. Mm-hmm. So, Luke, you go first.
Man of Steel. I liked Man of Steel. I really liked the score to Man of Steel. I wish. I don't know. I really enjoyed Man of Steel when I saw it at the cinema. I've enjoyed it the couple of times I've seen it since. I thought Henry Cavill was a great choice for Superman, and his Superman take made the film. I
really liked the way you said Henry Cavill.
Is that not how you say it?
No, I've just thought it was Henry Cavill, but Cavill sounded great.
Maybe it isn't.
A classically trained actor.
Let's note down where to make the edits, possibly on the dates and possibly on Henry's name.
No, I love it. Keep it in.
Maybe it's not. Nick keeps everything in. All of my stuff. I did a high pitched giggle on the last podcast. Nice. That's staying in. I think I just said podcast as well. That'll stay in.
Oh my god! I'm now going to make an active effort to say Cavill every time.
I'm just going to say Henry. I thought Henry was very good as Superman. And
this is degenerating so fast.
I really liked it. So although I'm probably going to badmouth Zack Snyder a little bit towards the end of this podcast, I really enjoyed Watchmen. I actually liked Sucker Punch as well. So I had high hopes for Man of Steel. And when I watched it, I thought, yes, it's really good film, really good superhero film. Because that was that the first DC film after the Dark Knight trilogy? No, was it out during?
No, it wasn't. It was Dark Knight Rises 2012. So then,
it was definitely after Dark Knight Rises, because when I went to see Rises, the trailer dropped.
Yes,
and
that's true.
It was amazing. It was hands down, actually,
best trailer.
My favourite film trailer of all time. I'm not even mad that they robbed the theme from Bridge of Khazad-dûm where Gandalf dies. It fits so perfectly. So yeah,
epic.
That's just a little insert for you there. But carry on, Luke.
I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I think it holds up now. I did not give a shit about the ending where everyone was losing their marbles, about everything that went down with the buildings being crushed and Zod and everything. I thought it worked really well. It got pretty well reviewed, didn't it, overall?
I think it was okay. I think it was sort of... I don't think it was like a 5-star across the board. I think it was...
Didn't it struggle because it didn't have Superman in the title?
Yeah, there was like a thing that came out afterwards that they said they wondered if box office struggled because it wasn't called something, just because it had...
I love the fact it was called Man of Steel.
Yeah, I thought
it was great, especially after Superman Returns before and everything. I thought it was nice just to have that, because obviously you could build to Superman, couldn't you? It could be Man of Steel, something else, and then Superman. But I really enjoyed it. I love the way it was shot. Though obviously, I don't mind the slow motion stuff. Really, it's more about the trailers. That every trailer that he's released with this has been.
They're very dramatic, aren't they? They're very
dramatic.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So, but
very
we'll cover that as well. But yes, I enjoyed Man of Steel. There's not much more. I've got nothing negative to say about it anyway. And I generally thought that was going to be the step forward that the DCU, or the start of it. I thought that was such a good. You know how Iron Man was really good for the MCU, even though at that point you didn't really know where it was going to go. And then it was kind of followed by Incredible Hulk, which was 50-50. And then Thor, which was, I really enjoyed Thor, but wasn't overly loved by many. But I thought Man of Steel and then everything that came after that was going to be a success.
Yeah.
So it was a good starting point.
Okay.
What did you think,
Harry?
Okay. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really good as well. Like, carrying off from what you said about the enjoying it not being called Superman. I really enjoyed how the film does that as well throughout. Like, it's not like he gets titled Superman, doesn't he? It's like a delayed thing.
Yeah.
So I remember in one of the early trailers as well, there's like what does the S stand for? And then Lois Lane says, well, she goes to say Superman or something, and it gets cut off by like the interview room mic thing. So there's like a load of really classy little nods to him being called Superman, but I don't think anyone that I recall. I don't think it's said until it's like a newspaper thing, is it?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's in Man of Steel.
Is it said?
It might not be until Bat Soups.
Doesn't Morpheus say it?
Morpheus.
Morpheus.
Nice.
I don't know.
I ain't saying anyone else's name wrong, so I'm not going to call him by his action.
Go on. Throw it out.
No, I'm not going down that road.
Just dodging that bullet.
Lorenzo Fishburne.
Yeah.
That's his name, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
But I thought he said it. Doesn't he say that in Man of Steel? Or is that later?
I feel like if it's said, it's a passing comment. It's not like, oh, that's Superman. Like it's not like he's not titled it. It's almost like a tabloid thing. If I'm right, I feel like it is that way. But yeah, no, that side I thought it was great, and it comes from the angle that I've never been a big Superman fan as well. So that's probably saying a lot.
I haven't either. I haven't been a huge. For all the comics and stuff that I read, Superman is rarely on my go-to pile.
It's
I've
more
just never gravitated towards it.
I feel like I always thought as well, and this is probably through lack of like reading a load of material. There was one I read that you showed me, Nick, at one point. It was like it's very similar to the Snyder Superman, but it's I always thought with Superman he was just way too overpowered. There just never seemed to be anything, and his weakness was a rock. So it was kind of like I felt no connection with it. Whereas a lot of other like heroes and stories have like a relatable element. And it wasn't until I read. I'm hoping you can help me out here, Nick. The one you showed me.
Yes.
Can't really narrow this down. You know the one.
Over the years.
It was the cover is like a young Superman. Is it year one? No,
year one.
No.
Yes,
there
year
is
one.
Superman year one.
It covers him with like a hoodie on, and he's like opening his shirt. Yeah,
Earth one.
That.
Earth.
Oh yeah, Earth one. Earth one rings a bell.
Yeah, it is Earth one because year one was the one with Frank Miller. Yeah.
Yeah, and I genuinely think that was probably the actual first Superman thing I read, like front to back. I think, which is bad, right? But it was one of the only times I've read it and been like, oh yeah, he is like a human being. And then the film presented it the same way. So like all the other Superman films or like properties, I've just never really been invested because I'm like, oh, he's just too powerful. Of course he flies super fast. He can stop a plane. He's a legend. He can fly into the sun and out, whatever. I was really annoyed by him more than anything. But then the presentation of Snyder's one, I was like, yeah, I feel for this guy. Like especially like the early scenes in the film where he is just like just being shit on for his whole life. And it's just like, man, this is miserable. It's not fair. And I loved the like little justices in the film. Oh, see what I did there? Where like that guy like starts on him in the bar and like tries to push him, just nothing, and then going back out to his truck and it's been smashed to bits. Because it's kind of like things like that where you're like, oh man, that is exactly what I would do if I was in that scenario. Because you can't exactly just crush a man who fights you, because let's be honest, it's pathetic. The guy's like can't even touch you. But you like when he's like poured his drink on him and like been rude, man, the amount of times like people have been rude to me in the jobs I've worked, and I've been like, I would love to go out and just smash the shit out of your car with trees, like that. It's so relatable. I'm like, yes, I get it. And like,
have you tried to lift up a tree?
If I told you, I might get in a lot of trouble with the local law enforcement. So I can neither confirm nor deny damaging property with trees. But yeah, I thought it was great, and I loved like you say the ending, Luke, as well, where like it's kind of like a realistic super fight where like everything gets destroyed.
That's the thing, isn't it? They're
legit.
It's a super fight, isn't it? It's like I remember the same thing with like Age of Ultron, which obviously they played on later in the MCU with the Accords and everything. But just if aliens are going to come and attack you and there's a big fight, you're not going to tiptoe around buildings, are you?
That's it. Yeah, for sure.
People are going to get hurt. And although we'll go into the link between that to Batman versus Superman at the beginning was perfect.
Oh, amazing! Yeah,
we'll talk about.
But yeah, the ending as well. The other part I really liked as well was the kryptonite thing. I was never a huge fan of the rock being a weakness. It just seemed a bit bizarre, and like, that's just like my mind. It wasn't like I hate rocks or anything. It just in my head it seemed like a really pointless. At the time when I was younger, I remember looking at it thinking, "Oh, okay, I'm sure," but like. In the film as well, it eased me into like liking the kryptonite thing a bit more when it came into Batman vs Superman, because his weakness in the first one isn't a rock, it's his home atmosphere or whatever, isn't it? Because it doesn't make him weak, it just makes him return to being what he would be on Krypton, which is just human. So I was like, that's cool. And then when they made the link with the kryptonite, I was like, yeah, I'm with it. So yeah, I'm a big fan, basically. Yeah, huge fan.
Good. I'm much the same. Yeah, enormous fan of it, and I still watch it now, and it still kind of gives me the same feelings I had when I first saw it in IMAX. Like, I'm pretty sure when I first saw it as well, I saw it with my brother on like the day of release with, I think, one of his mates, and we went for like the earliest screening in IMAX. It was just first in, kind of have to see this thing, and yeah. The thing
Were you first in?
Probably.
Like front of the queue.
Probably. I was like, give me it. The thing that I think still holds with me now, that I think every time I rewatch it, is they managed to put Superman under a lot of pressure, in the sense that he has to make a lot of decisions in a short space of time while under extreme circumstances. And I think that's always the interesting thing to do with somebody who is so overpowered, in that he has to make the decision about destroying the ship with Zod on it, which will ultimately mean that his people will never exist again. And he makes that decision on the fly because he chooses humanity. And then it's down to him and Zod, and Zod literally puts him in a position of like, I'm either going to kill some of your newfound family, or you kill me and end the Kryptonian bloodline, kind of thing. Like, you'll be the only one. And that's the thing that I think is always really good about Superman as well, is when you hone in on the idea that he is ultimately always going to be on his own. When I've like read Superman, the interpretations I love is where they kind of go, there is nobody else quite like him. I mean, there's Supergirl, obviously, but until he finds that out, he's ultimately just, he's never going to relate in the same way to humans as he does to his own kind. So I loved that they pitched it like that, and I thought that was, I never understood the criticism against it, other than I get that for people who are massive Superman fans who want him to just be this symbol of hope and good at all times. But I honestly think it's hard to do that after what Christopher Reeves did with Superman. I think he did that so well that
it had to be a different take, didn't it? Had to be.
Yeah, you've got to go down a completely different road. And I think what they did with Man of Steel is the right angle. I think it just wasn't the Superman that certain people wanted to see. Again, it's like a comic book. It's just, if that's the interpretation you don't like, then you just move on and you accept that you've got an interpretation you do like. So yeah, so Man of Steel for me, I just think is really, really good on all fronts. I think his relationship with Jor-El is really good, and I think the relationship with Jonathan Kent's really good. I think
Kevin Costner, man.
Kevin Costner,
that's my favourite casting of the whole film, like hands down. Kevin Costner
so
to
good.
Play his dad. Oh,
I know that
everything he says.
Shit as well. The scene where he dies. I know loads of people rip on it, but I think it's really impacting that it's the last thing. Like, the whole film is all about Superman and Clark Kent kind of finding home in humanity and accepting that this is his home now. And the moment of his dad just going like, don't risk what you're building to save me. Like, accept that death is just part of us being human. So I don't want you to come and save me. I just think it's one of the most noble acts you could do, and it sets up that entire arc for Superman.
I think with that dad scene when he does die, I think most people just hated the way he died. I think even for me, I didn't mind it necessarily, and I thought it was very well acted. But I think another situation, people wouldn't even really thought twice about it as much. But because there's so much going on in that scene, that the idea that he probably could have got there and saved him, and not many people would have seen what had happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the tornado, isn't it, at the time?
That's it, yeah.
Everyone's hiding and ducking and covering, and there aren't a lot of people, there aren't loads of eyes on the situation. Whereas if it was in like a city centre and buildings were collapsing, there was cameras everywhere, it would probably be more like, don't do it. But I think that's where, I remember when I saw it first time, I was like, I think he could have saved him.
But does it not then, on the flip side of that, does it not then make it more poignant in some way that the character of Jonathan Kent was like, don't risk it, even though that you're more likely to save me, don't risk what you've got. Don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, at that point, he doesn't know he's going to become Superman, does he? He doesn't have. He wants him just to be human, doesn't he? So yeah. I think you're right. Is if he if he does it that time, that if he's strong enough to not go and save his dad for everything they've worked hard for, then he'll hopefully grow up and realize that to keep himself safe and normal and have a life, he wouldn't do it in the future. But obviously he goes down a completely different path anyway. So Jonathan did it for nothing, unfortunately. Did you think Michael Shannon's Zod? That's a great bit of casting as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
The whole
Michael Shannon's great in anything.
Yeah.
And there's that scene early on where like he's
frothing
arrested.
at the mouth.
Yeah, he's like arrested and then gets super irate about finding Superman. Cal.
He's literally there's spit coming out. But I love that scene. That's one of my favourite scenes in the film when he's so angry. And you actually feel like, this guy's just, he's pissed off for, I mean, that's eventually he gets killed as well, isn't he? Because he's so helped his plan or what he wants to do is so, he's going to be unstoppable, isn't he? And I think if you'd done something like put him in the Phantom Zone or something, it's just, again, it's been done, hasn't it? So it had to be something different. Because we've had the goody two-shoe Superman, in a way. It's the same with Batman, isn't it? You went from the Tim Burton Batman to something completely, utterly ridiculous, like the George Clooney Batman.
What are you talking about?
That brings you...
He gave us Mr. Freeze. Arnie.
The thing that the Joel Schumacher Batman, and then
Bane with the bombs. Come on,
good. It's all good, really. I'm just trying to appeal to the masses.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's dreadful.
Deep down,
so
it's just so terrible, right, guys? Winking on camera. But then you get the Dark Knight Batman, and now you're getting another take on Batman as well, like a younger Bruce Wayne and things. So if they want to do after this. When it gets rebooted eventually again, it will be a different take on Superman, won't it? And they'll probably think, right, this one's not going to kill anyone and all that stuff. So I think the whole film, in my eyes, was a success based on I wanted something different. I wasn't a huge Superman fan, like Harry said as well. And I think this film made me more of a Superman fan.
Yeah, for sure.
And a bigger Henry fan.
Henry Cavill.
Cool. Okay, so... moving on a couple of years, we get Batman versus Superman, and we get initially a theatrical version, and then a little later on we get a director's cut. Thoughts on both? Thoughts on the first time you saw it, and then thoughts on when you watched the director's cut?
I was really excited about Batman vs Superman. It's one of those films, and I think DC do this so annoying. It's so frustrating because their trailers are always, apart from the recent Snyder Cut trailer, their trailers are always so good, and they get me so excited about the film. Like Batman vs Superman, when I saw that first trailer, I was like, "Holy shit! This is."
Was that the one with the? Sorry, is that the? Do you mean the one with the back signal thing? The little teaser.
Yeah.
It was like
Okay. The teaser, fantastic. Even the second trailer when he comes out the limo, everything's going on, and Lex Luthor. The whole bit there, Jesse Eisenberg?
Jesse Eisenberg and Henry Cavill. Keep them coming, please.
Jesse. And
Walter White.
It's so the trailers are so good. And I was excited. I mean, I've always wanted to see a Batman Superman fan. Even though I was a huge Superman fan, I was a huge Batman fan. I remember in I Am Legend when there was the teaser poster, and I remember thinking, oh, wow, that's so cool. Like, imagine if they did one, and it's never going to happen. It's way in the future. But then here we are, and it's happening. What felt like it came around super quickly. And I was really hyped going into the cinema. And I watched it with Brian, my big brother, and I think my dad as well. When I saw it the first time, I left the cinema and I said to Ryan, I think I really liked pretty much everything there other than the last quarter, I guess. Basically, from the moment Superman and Batman start fighting, I liked the fight, but obviously the Martha bit and all the Doomsday stuff, and it did feel like a chunk was missing. It felt really tampered with towards the end, and obviously it was. But I did not like it. I actually enjoyed a lot of it. I loved the Bat Armor stuff. I loved the beginning when he's running through the buildings. And if that was, I wish we had known that was what was going to happen, because so many people badmouthed the destruction of the city. but Bruce Wayne running through, like, if you think back to Man of Steel and you watch it again and you think Bruce is down there running around.
You can actually like almost map it out, can't you? You're like
he's there.
I remember the shot where when they collapse the building and you're like, oh yeah, Affleck is down there.
Yeah,
down there.
Recently Zack did like a director's commentary, so you could watch it and he was on Vero at the same time and he'd talk you through the making of it. And I've seen him talk about that opening, that he said he worked with the visual effects guys to correctly map out where all the laser beams and where people would go through buildings so it would perfectly line up. And he says he'd love, like he said, you know, he's not going to do it, but he said he's sure that somebody out there as a fan would put the two scenes together.
I'm pretty sure I've seen one of those videos.
You'd see them match up perfectly because of how the visual effects is.
But it's smart, isn't it? That when I saw that beginning bit, I thought this film was going to be, because I don't know if it was in the trailer or not, or if there was any information that was going to happen. I can't remember, but I really enjoyed the beginning and I enjoyed the middle. I loved the Lex Luthor stuff. I loved all the build up. There was so much going on, but it wasn't a bad film like it got labeled to be. It was just so much to make the internet go nuts. The Martha stuff was not great. Was it? And it was so badly edited in that fight that it just happened so quickly. It's like boom, 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 loads of stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, Superman's on his back and he's saying Martha, and it's like, the fuck, keep fighting.
Do you know what? I get the premise, right? I can see why it aggravates people who are like maybe detached a little from it, because I think a big problem with the film was a lot of people said they didn't want the origin story thing, and you guys said this before in the last podcast, the Into the Spider-Verse one, the last one I listened to, and it was like the origin story thing is a bit dead on people now, and it kind of leads into that because they said, because a lot of people kicked off about the origin, that tiny origin montage in Batman versus Superman. They were like, why the fuck was that in there?
That was like, really nicely done.
It was like, it was like 2 seconds long, and like it kind of needs to be there, but then it's obvious that obviously draws into the end. So people who weren't a fan of that will just have ignored it. But the crux of that whole little sequence is is Bruce Wayne's dad saying Martha to his like wife as she's dying, and then like the reflection later on in the film is, of course, that's the last thing that Bruce saw his dad say. So then later on, when he's on top of basically a guy, Henry Cavill, begging for his like mother's life, and he's saying Martha, that's like an instant like snap back to when he was a kid, hearing his dad in his dying words call out to his wife, and it's like that would probably stop you fighting, right? But I think unless you,
it was too quick. It was just too.
Yeah, I think Snyder's films require people to have like an attention span. God, that's going to offend a lot of people. But do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you're not paying attention, you will kind of miss those things. And I definitely remember the first time I watched it, I can definitely count myself among them, because I was like, wait, what? And it didn't help as well that I didn't know that Clark Kent's mother, well, I did know she was called Martha because of the films, but I never made the connection in my head that Batman's mum and Superman's mum actually have the same name. So I was sort of sat there in the cinema watching that scene being like, the fuck is going on? And it wasn't until like a few seconds later that I was like, oh shit, yeah, of course. Like, and then it's just the flip of the dynamic that now it's Superman. Batman's like the villain. He's on top of the guy begging, whereas he was once the kid watching his dad beg. And it's like he's gone from being the kid on the ground to being the guy, the oppressor on top. And it's like, oof.
Why did Clark say? I know Martha was taken. Obviously, Martha's been held hostage. But why would he say Martha? Why wouldn't he say like, Mum?
I know. Yeah.
Why would you say? I wouldn't. If I was dying, I would go Marianne.
To be fair, though,
I guess it's because if he said like mum, what he's doing there is he's asking Bruce to save his mum. So if Clark had just gone mum, Bruce would have been like,
that would have been so weird.
I don't know who the fuck that is. But if you say Martha, then it gives him, like, even if he kills Superman and then there, he goes, there is somebody called Martha that he was asking me to save. Who is this person? and then he tracks it from there. So it's the idea that he's kind of saying, look, kill me now, like I don't give a shit, but save Martha, like save her.
I think it just needed a bit. Obviously, in the extended cut, it's a bit different, but in that theatrical release, it needed just a bit more, because I think that really took people away from, because we wanted to see Batman versus Superman, didn't we? That's what we came down to. So that fight was built up so much that when it ended like that, I think I immediately, and I did connect the dots at the beginning, and I knew about Martha and everything, but I didn't. It still took me out of the moment. And then all of a sudden, probably the best scene in the whole film happens next, when Batman just goes to town on people at the house.
Yeah.
But it just goes so quick in the theatrical release. It's just, okay, so he's there, and then all of a sudden, Doomsday's, he's flying around. Wonder Woman shows up, and then you get this Trinity thing. And I think from that point on, even in the extended cut, which I really enjoyed compared to the theatrical release, when I watched the extended cut, I was fully invested in it. I love all the added bits of Lex and everything. But it was still too much too soon. And whether it was the studio or it was Zack getting overexcited because he was dying to get to Justice League, I don't know the ins and outs. But for if that film was just Batman versus Superman, and they extended the fight a bit more, and they just teased a bit of Wonder Woman, they threw too much in there. They threw all the tidbits with the Flash and Aquaman and the screens. Doomsday is such a big villain as well, and already in 2 films you've gone through Zod and Doomsday, which is pretty crazy. And by Justice League you would have seen Darkseid, so you are 3 huge villains in very, very quickly in this DCU. So I think I was a bit put off by the end of it, even in the extended cut, which I did generally really like as well, but it was just too much. Theatrical, too rushed together. Extended, I really enjoyed, but there was just too much going on. Even they had Joker teasers. It was just a shit ton of stuff, guys. I wanted it to be something a little bit more scaled back, but that's not Zack Snyder's MO. So.
Yeah, I think the Justice League setup, that to me always felt like a studio thing, that they knew they were going to Justice League next and they needed it to just be done then and there. The Doomsday thing, interestingly, again, when Zack was doing his director's commentary for Man of Steel, he was saying that the Doomsday you see in Batman vs Superman isn't the Doomsday. It's just what Lex built. It's just a monster. Because the actual Doomsday exists somewhere in Krypton, because it's punched a hole through the moon in Krypton. So when you see the opening shot of Man of Steel, and it's like that huge shot where Jor-El comes out and he looks across, there's a moon, and it's got a hole through it. And Zack was like, my story there was always that Doomsday exists on Krypton, and he's like punched through a moon at some point in his existence.
That is fun.
That's awesome. But then why? It feels, I know there's huge butt heads of studios with, with Suicide Squad and everything. Like if you read David Ayer's other stuff, like you see like the book that you said about Harry and everything, that is different to what the film could have been. But there's obviously, I don't for a second think Zack Snyder didn't have, when he started writing Man of Steel, he obviously wanted to have this huge scope. And there's obviously a huge amount of pressure, like you said, Nick, with knowing they had to go the route of Justice League because of how successful the MCU was and how slowly they built everything up. But, I wish that could go back in time and they could just say, you just do what you need to do, Zack. Because I think Batman vs Superman would have been a lot better overall if Zack had just had final say. You hear what James Gunn saying about the Suicide Squad now. He said he's had no interference. So they've learned their lesson a bit, haven't they?
Yeah.
But it's a shame. It's a shame that it didn't go from... My expectations from the trailers were super high, and then when I watched it, they definitely went down a bit because it just felt very messy.
This is what I've been saying about the Snyder Cut of Justice League, is I have historically with all the Snyder films had like huge expectations from all the trailers. Like Man of Steel I did, and I watched the film and it lived up to it like straight away. Batman versus Superman with the theatrical cut, I'm with you. I think like the theatrical cut did not live up to the trailer hype, but the extended cut did give me like more material, which made me more content later. And I was sort of like from a back seat, you're sort of like, yeah, I've got what I've came for now. But with the Snyder Cut, super amped about anything I see about it, but I am trying to like actively be more like, okay, cool, chill. And then like when I see it, I'll form an opinion rather than getting too ahead of myself. Because I think it is like a problem a lot with today's, like, here we go, like trailer culture, if you will. Everything, if they like put out trailers for films which end up like not always having the footage that's in the trailers even in the film. So it's almost like they're putting everything into trailers and pumping them out to make them look amazing. They'll either put all the good bits of the film in the trailer, or they're sort of like, they're kind of dishonest. So they're very good at leading you to want to see a film, which I get is the point of a trailer, but sometimes that the level of hype that builds from them, you never quite match when you go see it.
I agree.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, you sort of touched on it, Harry. But if you wanna discuss in detail how you landed on the theatrical cut, because we saw it together.
Yes, we did.
We did a midnight of Man of Steel.
I remember this really vividly, actually. Yeah, because huge Man of Steel fan. So I was like, yeah, great. I remember seeing the teasers and all the trailers that you'd said about Luke for Bat Soups, and I'd reread Dark Knight Returns, the comic book. So I was like, well, graphic novel, it's huge. So I was like, right, I get where I'm going with this. Obviously, they're related. They're not the same plot, but anyway. So I was quite ready for the film. So evening of it comes, we go watch Man of Steel, great, and then it's obviously straight into Bat Soups, and I definitely share Luke's opinion with how I felt about it. And the way I've actually thought about relating it is, do you know how the hype ended with Game of Thrones, and everything in that last season felt like it should have been 2 or 3 seasons?
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's quite similar with the final act of Batman vs Superman, but like especially the theatrical cut, because there's so much build up throughout the whole film, which is like all great material. Loved everything. I didn't hate anything. That's to say, I enjoyed everything that was in the film, but the pacing of it it's all in the first. No, sorry, it's all the first like 3 quarters is build up. The last quarter is everything that it amounts to, and it's like they could have added another hour on top of all of that.
Well, they could have done a part 1, part 2 for Batman Superman, couldn't they? Or something.
Oh, easily, with everything they had in there. Yeah, they could have spaced that whole film up and had like the first film could have just been everything building up to Batman and Superman's fight, and it ends on even if they end on the martyr, it ends on that like that cliffhanger or somewhere around there, or like the we're buddies, I'm going to go to fuck the people up at the warehouse, like end near there, and then part B. There's almost enough material to have, like you say, the Wonder Woman Doomsday nod in there. I mean, obviously you need a lot of build up for that, but that'd be like 2 hours of just a fight, which would be a ridiculous film. But
do you think there should have been a film in between Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman? Do you think there should have been? Because obviously you would lose Bruce Wayne running through Metropolis. You could still do it obviously later, but if there's a film in between, you'd lose that. Especially you two going to see Man of Steel and they're straight into Batman and Superman. That's such a nice back to back. It's a really nice link.
Yeah. No, I think they tie in fine. I like the 2 films as a back to back. Yeah, totally fine with them as they are. I just feel like it's with Zack Snyder being so meticulous about what he creates. I think it's like you said about him getting really excited to introduce the Justice League, and even whether it's studio or not, ultimately there's so much content in not enough time, and it's like a thing as well with the Snyder Cut of Justice League. There's a lot more. Like how long's that supposed to be now?
4 hours.
4 hours, and the theatrical cut was. I mean, whether or not we believe it to be all Snyder content, but hypothetically, the film was like what 2?
So the theatrical cut of Justice League was 2 hours. Zack said yesterday, when he put the trailer out, that his cut of Justice League contains 2.5 hours of unseen footage.
Right.
So in theory, you've seen 1.5 hours of his film.
But that's still like the amount of content. Like, so even if there was not to be a Whedon cut, it was Snyder's film. They're going to cut that down for cinema. So you get the amount of material that Snyder's shoots for his films is so, I don't want to say excessive, because it's like, I think it's good stuff, but like he shoots a lot of content, and it was really apparent, I think, with the difference between the theatrical cut of Batman vs Superman and the director's cut, because although the director's cut is a lot longer, it's more like it's just an extension of the existing material. It's not like you're watching and going, oh, they've missed this in, other than there is obviously like a few bits here and there. The plot of the film is exactly the same, and it doesn't leave out all the key points, because the theatrical cut had all the key points but just lacked the connecting parts. So the theatrical cut just felt quite muddled. You had a lot of stuff to like get your head around with not enough screen time to connect the dots. So it wasn't. I came out of Bat Soups not disappointed, but I just remember feeling like, man, I need to watch that like again, and not in like I'm so hyped I need to see it a second, third, fourth time. I was like, I need to watch this again just to like wrap my head around some of the finer points, because there was things I remember coming out and you'd pointed out, Nick, that I was like, don't remember that. And it wasn't until like the theatrical the director's cut was released that the theatrical cut felt like justified. So like I've enjoyed it a lot more essentially when they released the director's cut. But that's not to say I hated what we got. I just felt conflicted. It was like I enjoyed the experience, but I did come out feeling confused.
You feel a bit shortchanged. I think I felt confused, shortchanged. But I remember you and I talking, Nick, after you saw, because you saw it before I did, both of you. And I remember asking you what you thought at the time, and I think you actually said to me that you're not quite sure how you feel about it. And you're going to tell us now, but before you do, sort of like just something about Harry said, is that he said about how much material Zack Snyder shot. But that is what frustrates me with these things, and we'll talk about with the Snyder Cut as well, is that he shoots all that material, but what does he think is going to happen as well? Because studios are never going to let it be a 4-hour film for Batman v Superman unless it is part 1 and part 2, which we know has happened before. It's happened with things like the Hunger Games and everything like that. Like, there's too much material. We're going to split it into 2. It's going to have a natural end. Same with the Harry Potter films. Like, we're going to do all the legwork in the first part. The second part is going to be action. You said, Harry, they could have done Batman versus Superman with all the legwork in the first film, maybe built up a bit more of the Martha stuff, so it jumped into people who weren't sorry to the idea. But of course things are going to get cut. Of course you're going to be frustrated because you shot stuff, but the script must have been massive. So all the actors and everyone involved must have known that it was going to happen. So it's no different with the Justice League. There's so much stuff. If you're writing it with the knowledge that you think this film is going to be about 4.5 hours, that's so much good stuff. And you shoot everything, it's never going to work. He's lucky that fans have petitioned so much that he's getting his vision potentially out there. But I think Batman and Superman could have been played a completely different way in terms of how he just originally made it as well. But anyway, I still enjoyed it. Nick, what did you think?
Yeah, how best to describe this? So I was very, very hyped. Man of Steel for me at that point was, and it still slightly is, my favorite superhero film. And I think going into Bat Soups, I sort of had the impression that it was going to continue that same storyline, that same kind of tone and the same thing. And I think watching the theatrical, I was kind of confused because I was like, visually it's there, and there's enough of the sort of plot points in what I like about Snyder is where he'll look at the humanity of heroes rather than just go like, here's a big bombastic, it's going to be a lot of fun for the next 2 hours, just balls to the walls entertainment. It's more like, I want to take these characters and absolutely bring them down to their core, break them, and then by the end of them put them in a different position because of what they've gone through. And so when I watched the theatrical cut, it was like I could see where he was going with that, but it didn't add up. Like I was
land.
Yeah, it was like there's definitely something missing there, because plot point, like the whole Superman arc of him being framed, when he ended up in the courthouse or the Senate or whatever it is, I was like, I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to pin on him here. because the
Yeah.
theatrical cut that whole section, like it just breezed by it. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, the desert thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
like
was
none of
a
that makes sense.
massive thing to get rid of.
Yeah, and so
Um,
then when I got to the extended cut and you see that, you're like, oh shit, that's that's a really heavy storyline to put Superman into that position of going like, we're going to position him as, some people see him as a character of hope and he's our savior, and then other people see him as this alien, this guy who could any minute destroy the planet. And so we're gonna play both sides of this, and that storyline is like, it's sensationalism. It's injecting into a superhero film what we see every day, that it's like, here's a person that the media hate because he's in the limelight or whatever. And I thought that was a really smart decision to go for with the Superman arc, and especially to bring Bruce Wayne in it as this other hero who's like out for justice. That's an intelligent way to pit the two against them. But again, in the theatrical cut, that didn't come across because that whole plot line wasn't really embellished. So when I came out theatrical, I was very confused, and I knew I liked the visuals. I knew I liked Ben Affleck. I knew I liked Gal Gadot.
To be fair, sorry, cutting in there, but
go for it.
That was one thing I was solidly pro after it. Like, I was 100% like, the film was a bit weird, but Affleck and Gal Gadot were insane. And like Cavill carried on his thing fine, but he was basically the center of all the confusion, so, like with the plot. So I was like, it's a bit weird, but yeah, I did come out 100% like hands down. Affleck is straight up Batman. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Gal was like straight up Wonder Woman. Like the moment she like hops in at the end, even though like it's very like sudden and her character's like darting in and out, it was the little scenes that build up to that. Like there's the scene with them at their like art venue where there's the sword of the fake sword of David, or I can't remember what it is, but it's in a glass box, and there's that little like tee off between the two of them where she's like, oh yeah, looking at the sword, and he's like, it's a fake. And it's like, there's a lot of like good Batman and Wonder Woman material in that film.
There's loads of good material though, isn't there? That's the thing. There is so much good stuff. That's why I wish it was spread out more.
For sure.
I think you're right there. I think definitely, like, even with the extended cut, which I absolutely love, and I think it's the only other contender for my favorite superhero film. Like, I watched it recently, and it's always either that or Man of Steel. Genuinely, I can't get enough of Bat
What about Thor 2?
Gosh. Or Ant-Man
Thor 2.
But yeah, it just because every time I watch it, I notice something different about it, something else that it's saying, or something else that it's conveying in terms of these two characters and how they're going about things. And the last time I watched it, for some reason, I've always clicked. I've always liked Jesse Eisenberg as Lex, but
Eisenberg, yeah.
But I love the approach with him, that he's got like a quiet anger, and I kind of really like that it's more of like a frustration, that it's like, I could fix the world if you'd let me, but you're not, and so I'm just gonna fucking go evil. And like,
you go. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, the bit where he gets to when he threatens Martha, and he's like, "What do we do with witches?" That's like the most menacing thing I think anybody could do, is threaten to burn your mum. And the way he does it with like the Polaroids, and it's
pretty like, dark. Yeah,
it is really villainous, but it's all built up through this like quiet anger of like, they're not giving me what I want, so I'm just gonna take it, basically.
It's a great shot on top of the building as well, when you see the fight happening over the other side.
I tell you what, that was also a thing which blew me away. What I loved about that film was there's the Hans Zimmer score, but particularly the track is The Red Capes Are Coming, and it's the one where he goes down into the facility where the Kryptonian wreckage is. Yeah, and is there another box down there?
Isn't there a box down there?
Well, he goes down to the ship, doesn't he?
When Lex Luthor goes down.
Yeah, he goes down to the ship with Zod's body, doesn't he? Like the first time, and he's in. either way, the shot he comes out of an elevator and it's like yet again slow mo. It's like a slow mo walk of Lex as he like steps out of the elevator, and like the shot sort of just like panned at his feet as he walks down the corridor. And I remember watching that and being like, damn, that is a great supervillain shot.
Yeah,
because I'm so used to supervillains being like big, crazy, overt creatures.
Yeah, because that's in the text really nice when he's in the water. That's where there's a box where he's
yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
Like, I'm so used to like overt villains.
Yeah, that was another thing that they left out of the theatrical cut, is the bit with Lex where they find him and he's sort of like been communicating with Steppenwolf, who's showing them other boxes and stuff. Like that whole scene being left out, you're a bit like, why would you leave that out? As well as when you get to the end and Batman's there with Lex in that great like interaction between the two of them. In the theatrical cut, he never mentions that he's sending Lex to Arkham. He just says like, we're sending you somewhere. Whereas in the extended cut, it's like hardcore, you're going to Arkham. Yeah. And it's just...
Really? I didn't remember they'd left that line out. But
I'm pretty sure it is anyway, because I'm pretty sure
I think you're right.
And he says it, and I was like, what the fuck? That changes like, the scene. But
all the casting is great, isn't it? Jesse is fantastic. I love his interpretation of Lex Luthor. I think he's really, really good.
Yeah, that was interesting because a lot of people. I remember seeing an interview with him where, because there was obviously like a lot of backlash initially for his look because he had long hair, which people who hadn't read the comic background, that he has like long ginger hair. A lot of the Origins tales, or one of the Origins tales in particular. I remember seeing an interview with him where he was like, "Yeah, it's a weird thing for someone to hate you for something they haven't actually seen you do yet." And this was before the film came out, and I was totally on the moment I saw that. I was like, "Yeah, I feel like he'll do this right," because like he talks like someone with conviction before I've even seen the plot. And so I was invested with Jesse Eisenberg's interpretation. By the moment I saw the picture of him bold, looking really menacing, and then the later point where, like I say, when there was that interview with him, I was like, "Yeah, he'll be good." And he was.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think the whole casting was good, and I think that's what it was like. When I watched the theatrical, I was like, "You've given me something there that I know I like, but you've taken away everything that will give me reason to like it." It was like I kind of came out of it and I was like, "I think I like it, but I can't tell you why because it doesn't quite make sense." And then seeing the extended cut, it's like, "Oh, okay, these are the reasons I like it then." And it's all because it's all lined out. It makes sense. I definitely think the scene where the League is introduced is ham-fisted. It's so quick and it's just bizarre, unnecessary, and it goes on quite a while. As much as I like the individual shots, I always kind of thought like you could just bang that into a credits. Like if you just watch the credits and then it was just like,
that's
here's the side.
Another one of my friends said that. Yeah. He was like, that whole section, because it's like less than like 60 seconds of just him clicking on the videos.
Yeah.
It's right at the end. Like there was no end credits, so that would have been ideal.
Yeah.
I wish that they had done. And now I'm going to say what I wish would have happened before we get to the Snyder Cut stuff. Is unless you want to carry on with. Sorry, I interrupt you again, Nick.
No, the only other thing I was going to say, which will take me into the Snyder Cut, is a little bit, is that Bat suits, like, absolutely love it, and it also gave me the Nightmare vision, which I think is one of the coolest.
Yep, that is so cool.
Like, so damn cool. And I think that's something that when we go into the Snyder Cut, it's going to be prominent. I think that's going to be a key part of, which I'm so excited for. Like, give me more of that. Just
that and the Flashpoint stuff as well. Like when the Flash turns up and Bruce, I love all that stuff as well. So what I wish they had done is that if you have Man of Steel first, and you set everything up for Superman, you have Batman vs Superman, and it's its own film just about those two. Lex Luthor can be involved as well. Got no problem with that. They could tease Wonder Woman a bit because obviously that would lead into the Wonder Woman film. But then I wish they did do Justice League Part 1 and 2, but Justice League Part 1 was more about that could have had Doomsday and Lex. Lex could have been the villain for that. Superman still could have died at the end of Justice League Part 1. That could have been the end of Justice League Part 1. And then Wonder Woman teased Aquaman or something, and then they could have teased the Flash in Justice League Part 1, and then Justice League Part 2 rolls around. all the characters come together, they get Superman back, and then that is the Justice League film, essentially what will be the Snyder Cut, but obviously not 4 hours long.
Way later, yeah.
Way later, and it's just the Batman Superman stuff is just done then, and it's just focusing on what Lex Luthor has effectively started and the war that's coming. And then if Justice League 2 was a success, then you could get another Superman film out of it. Affleck would still be Batman. I know he's going to be it. Flashpoint, anything. It just could have been handled so much better, I think, and it's heavily on the studio. Like with Suicide Squad as well, Batman appeared in there. But for me now, the only thing they can do is, I wish that obviously they're going to do the Snyder Cut, but I think the Flash film is so important for the next stage of this, because they could rewrite everything. Like all of it could be, they could say, right, Gal Gadot is still going to be Wonder Woman, and all these characters still, if they're going to change everything, like if they're going to change Batman or whatever they're going to do, now's the time to do it. And they could still keep all the good stuff that's happened, but you can try and forget some of the negative stuff, because it's weird that when you say it's one of your favorite superhero films, because I generally think there is so much good in there, but it's just an overcomplicated mess, and they rush everything too soon, and that for me brings it down the pecking order for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the Justice League part at the end is rushed. Like that is the only thing in there for me that I'm just like, that doesn't work. Everything else, I just think I've never seen superheroes presented in that way, in that it's not a film that you can kind of sit down and go, this is just going to be an enjoyable, crazy 2 hours. It's a film where it's really causing you to kind of think about everything, and to think about the characters in a certain light, which I think is what a lot of people don't like about it, is that it's very critical on the heroes themselves. It's not kind of saying, Batman's instantly a hero or Superman's instantly a hero. It's kind of going like, these people are flawed, and this film is figuring out why. And so by the end, they've gone through this kind of nightmare of figuring themselves out. So by the end, they're in a position where they want to inject some hope into the world, and that is what the Justice League is. I do think the film probably should have been called Dawn of Justice rather than Batman vs. Superman.
100%.
I think like that's a marketing thing. I'm pretty sure that somebody went, let's call this Dawn of Justice, and a marketing person went, you're not going to make any money.
Well, probably off the back of the Man of Steel.
Yeah, I think it is definitely off the back of Man of Steel. So I think there's that, but I think it holds up in terms of every time I watch it, I figure out something different, and I get something from it that I'm like, it's an incredibly well-written story that just requires you to watch it so many times to pick up all the nuances. Like one of the things that I only caught recently is at the end, after Superman's dead, on his monument, somebody's painted in, if you seek his monument, look around you, which is great to sum up Superman. That is Superman in general. But I didn't realize that quote is in St. Paul's Cathedral about the guy who made St. Paul's Cathedral.
Right.
I was like, that's absolutely amazing, and shows the kind of detail that I think Chris Terrio and Zack go into, where they're like, this thing is going to be tied to this, and this will be linked to here, and we're saying all of these things by tying it into this. But I think it takes several like viewings to really unpack it. And so
that's a shame, though, isn't it?
That is the thing. It is, but at the same time, I think it's sort of, that's Zack's bread and butter. I
think it definitely narrows the audience, but
it definitely does. But I mean, it's the same with Watchmen, in that like the first time you read Watchmen, like for me, anyway, the first time I read Watchmen, it was just like, this is a really cool superhero take. I didn't necessarily take in all the things that it's saying about society and people and superheroes and their place in the world and how we idolize them and stuff. As a kid, I was like, Rorschach is really cool. And then you sort of, as you get older, you're a bit like, kind of
a
bit of a prick.
Yeah.
And you that's something you kind of get with age. And I think Batman vs Superman is the same thing. That I think, in 10 years' time or something, I think there will be a case that people will look back at it and kind of go like, oh shit, it was actually trying to say something with superheroes. We just didn't want it at the time. I think we wanted the big bombastic approach. So yeah, but okay. So going into Snyder Cut. So 2017 rolls around, and Zack leaves Justice League as it's in post-production, I think, because unfortunately he has a family bereavement. And he pulls in Joss Whedon to finish off the film, which will
Did he pull in Joss Whedon, or the studio pulled in Joss Whedon?
So at the time, it sounded like
Good question.
It was a studio and Zack choice. Since then, rumor has it
was a cyborg choice.
Yeah.
The Russians.
Yeah. Since then, it sounds more and more like it was a studio decision, that they were trying to take the universe into a different way and approach it from a different angle. And
well, they went with what was successful with Avengers, didn't they? Even though Age of Ultron didn't hit the ground running, but
yeah,
that's
it was
formula they were looking for.
Yeah, it was that. It was the sense that, you know, Batsuits came out, people didn't like it, whether that was down to the fact that it was complicated and the theatrical cut was a mess, or that it was really dark. I know a lot of people who really didn't like it because it was just gritty and grim and there wasn't any life to it. But
it's pretty miserable, isn't it? Yeah, that's what I liked.
But that's the thing. It's like, that's the approach. And so then, you know, Suicide Squad, which was due to be more of the same, I think they spun that around because they were like, oh shit, we've just made an even darker film. We had loads of themes in this cut, which is just probably not going to go down well. So let's make a happy film out of this.
Another amazing trailer, by the way, Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah,
the Comic-Con trailer is sensational. And you know, that's them. That's Warner's fault. That's all on them in that they started a universe that was pitched as one thing, and then they've tried to steer it in a completely different direction, but not done it. It's ended up in a mess. So when you get to November 2017, we all sit down and watch Justice League. What were our reactions?
Fuck.
Yeah.
What the fuck was that? That was my reaction. I went to cinema. I saw it with my friends from work, and the first 10 minutes, the sound in the cinema wasn't working. So the whole scene with Batman on the rooftop fighting a parademon, there was no noise. So it was like, I wonder what we missed. Turns out not much. But it wasn't good. I did not like it. There were bits that I liked, mostly the bits that were in the Comic-Con trailer. Another trailer that I loved.
Yeah.
I thought, by this point, Aquaman had been out, hadn't it? I think. Aquaman. No, I hadn't. Okay, well, Wonder Woman had been out, hadn't it?
Wonder Woman had yet.
I enjoyed Wonder Woman a lot. Didn't like the ending again. I did not like the ending of Wonder Woman, but I liked the film as a whole, and I liked all the cast in Justice League. I thought I liked the cast in Justice League. I thought it was just such a mess, wasn't it? You could clearly tell the bits that were Scott Snyder and Joss Whedon. The shots of Zack Snyder, and you could definitely tell which were which. Obviously, you had like everyone was quite like questioning, like there was a Gal Gadot had not been put out as a sex symbol. Obviously, she's super attractive, but there were 2 or 3 ass shots of her walking in trousers that was Joss Whedon's all over it. It was just, and the purple skies at the end, and just so much was cut out that was in the trailer. All of the Cyborg stuff, some of the Aquaman stuff, just the end fight was terrible. The Superman stuff didn't hold up again to what we thought. We were all longing for the black suit Superman. The fucking mustache thing at the beginning.
Oh my God.
What is going on?
Generally one of the worst CGI things I've ever seen.
That set the tone again. We talk about things setting the tone. Like if Batman, Superman, the beginning of that, if that stayed the course for me, would have been one of the best Superman films. If that buzz at the beginning carried on through us, but in the theatrical release, I mean. But when you see old Henry, you see his lip half like deformed by CGI. You just think, what is going on? And I just remember thinking, what is this? What's happening? And at that point, I didn't know that his mustache. He had a mustache because of Mission Impossible. And it just went downhill for me. There are some good bits in there as well. There are good bits. I like most of the stuff with the Flash. I like some of it, but the overall thing, I came out of there so disappointed because when Avengers was teased, with Thanos at the end and everything like that in Avengers, but when Avengers was that whole thing, they were going to build towards that, and it took so long for them to get to Endgame in a good way. But Iron Man, and they teased everything about, and they're building up the Avengers one by one. They're all getting their films and everything in. Avengers is such a big deal. Justice League, that's huge. I think, in my eyes, as a Marvel fanboy, I still think Justice League is a bigger and better team than the Avengers.
Man.
I think it's got so much to it. Flash, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. I wasn't even, like I said, I wasn't the biggest Superman fan. That is a team. That is like a huge deal. And for so long, people probably wanted that film to be made, all the huge fans of it and everything. And then just because of studios and errors and rushing it, it felt like we left Batman vs Superman and there was a trailer for Justice League the next day. That's what it felt like to me. And it's all happening so fast. And it just didn't live up to any hype. And I think going in there, we already knew it'd already been getting bad press before because of the changes and everything. And yeah, I didn't enjoy it really at all. You two, I mean, I know you're both fan. I know we all enjoyed Man of Steel, and Nick really liked Batman vs Superman, and I know we both enjoyed it. But did you two? Did you like Justice League?
No. I remember Harry and I saw it together for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was like not even similar to how we came out of Bat Suits, and we were like, there's something there. It was sort of like, that's just not even like tonally the same thing. It was like a different entity altogether.
It felt like I'd accidentally gone into the wrong screening and watched something that I wasn't supposed to have watched, and then came out and was like, hold on, was that Justice League?
Yeah.
It was weird, wasn't it? Like,
yeah.
I know what you're saying though. I'm definitely on board with you. Like, there were bits which I actually liked. Like there was, and from, I think it was just massively, and like I was saying earlier about like overhyping things. I don't think I massively overhyped Justice League, because I remember saying to Nick, this opinion of mine wasn't like a newfound thing because of Zack Snyder. There was a certain point where I was watching films. I was like, you know what? I'm just getting too invested in trailers. It's pissing me off when I'm watching a film. So I think Nick and I. You were at a point where you're like, I'm not watching trailers anymore. And I was like, I don't have that kind of self-control. I'm going to watch trailers, but I'm not going to get hyped over them. I'm just going to
only watch trailers. I'm not going to see the film.
I'm not watching films. The trailers are better. But yeah, I remember seeing that, like, when Zack was still involved, I saw the first trailer hit about which has that bit where like Batman turns to Cyborg, and Cyborg turns to Batman. He's like, I didn't think you were real, and that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is great, 10 out of 10. And I came out of Justice League and I was like, what? That's like not even 1 out of 10. Yeah. There was so much like shit. All the humor in it was like, it's like they. And this is the problem we'll have with a lot of cinema now. And I'm not going to try and go too hard because I could rant about it for hours. But like, I feel like now they look for a film that's successful and try and clone that as a model for everything. And I think I'm like, yeah, again, not going to talk too long on it, but Deadpool and Guardians of the Galaxy, incredible films, but I think they simultaneously ruined a lot of films that followed it, because everyone saw that Deadpool was super successful and Guardians of the Galaxy was super successful because they're kind of both far-fetched and hilarious. And they were like, everything needs that. So they've tried to insert humor and like levity into a lot of films that don't need it. And like when they had, like in Justice League, there were parts where like Batman's cracking jokes, and it was like, don't get me wrong, you can have humor from Batman in like his dialogue back and forth with other characters. Like he can cut people off or be damn. You can use it intelligently to make Batman have funny moments, but you can't have Batman as the team comedian. And when he like drops, like I remember loving the line from Batman vs Superman where he's saying about, do you bleed? The you will thing. It's like, oh fuck, that's ominous. And then like they literally turn that into shit with Justice League when they're like, I can't remember what happens, but he gets thrown on the floor because it's such a bad joke anyway. It's not even a joke, but it's like they've been like, let's make Batman say something funny. He falls on the floor after Superman grabs him or something. He's like, oh, something's definitely bleeding. And you're like, what the fuck was that? Like,
isn't it? That's where it's a mess. And why the hell so the MCU formula, the films, like, if I was, I mean, I know it's all about money. I'm not stupid. I know it's about merchandising and stuff like that, but you don't have to copy. You just said about Deadpool and stuff. It should have been its own thing. They should have looked at the Christopher Nolan trilogy and thought,
yeah, for sure.
Let's stick to something like that. Let's make it dark. And now, of course, we're getting the Batman, and it's from Matt Reeves, and it is dark again, and everyone's super excited about it. But then they could have done that with this. Batman should have been that bleed line. That should have been, that bit in the warehouse when he's just fucking kicking ass and everything like that. It should have been in a nutshell. Just Batman should have been pissed off. He's obviously gone through a lot of shit with, looks like Robin's been killed and everything like that. It should have been that, and they should have just honed in on the dark side of it and just really owned it. Like, imagine if Darkseid just, how Thanos is teased and he looks back to the camera. Imagine the first time you see Darkseid, he just shows up and he just, like, he kills Superman. Like, imagine if he just did it. And that's the first bit you see of him, and it's like, holy fucking shit. Like, look what just happened, and you'd be hooked because you'd want to see
That would be the biggest cinematic mic drop of all time.
Would it? But I think they could have played it differently. But you're right, Harry. Just so cheesy, and that's where the Joss Whedon stuff comes in, because they've obviously got him in, probably the studio, like you said, Nick, as well, and they thought, make Batman come off like Thor. Like, he's got he's powerful, he's got this, but let's have some jokes and stuff. And Superman's fucking dead. Like, it should be
somber,
and then he comes back and it's just, Aquaman's like flying through the sky and he's pretending to be on a surfboard and in the sky. I don't know what he's doing.
It was bonkers, wasn't it?
Bonkers.
I remember
Purple Sky, guys.
Yeah, it was like, and there were, like you said, there were parts which I actually kind of liked a lot. Like the first interaction with Justice League and Superman when he wakes up, the initial part where Superman's like delirious, doesn't really know what's going on, and they try and like calm him down, but it ends up kicking off. The end of that, where the Flash goes up against Superman, because there's always that like comic book age-old question: who's quicker, Flash, Superman, Superman, Flash? And everyone has their argument. I don't really care, but I was like, I want to see a speed off, which I'm sure you loved because it was all in slow mo. But the little slow mo sequence where Henry Cavill and Ezra Miller, or is it Ezra?
Ezra Miller.
Ezra Miller. When they're like, well, it's sort of like Ezra's Flash is dodging around Superman as he's like swiping for him, and you sort of see Superman's eyes like twig, so he's like able to catch up with the Flash's movements. It's like, those details were really fun and I loved them. But then it just goes straight back down to crap again, just like the end of that fight being, like I said, the shit Batman joke. And then it was sort of like the tiniest dose of hope being instantly dashed by something which just felt so out of place and wrong. And like, once it's happened like 2 or 3 times in the first couple of minutes of the film, you're instantly switched off. So even the like bits which are quite good, you have to have seen it like twice, or like have like a couple of days of like thinking back on the film to be like, oh, in hindsight, that was quite good. But even now, like as long as it's been since the film came out, there's so little I can like grab hold of with that film. And like, it is literally just because it just feels so tarnished by a lot of things. And I know it sounds like, oh, you're saying this because you know how things have gone down with the film, especially with a lot of stuff with Cyborg, the actor, like a lot of things he's come out and said. But you do watch I watched the film, and I felt like the actors weren't invested. Didn't feel like they were putting their all into it, and like I said, there were moments where it was good, but it felt like
it's because it came out.
It's really hard to encompass. Yeah, it felt so sudden and like so. It came back to me like, I'm not sure if even these people think they're in a Justice League film.
Agree. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and it was so strange, and I loved. There were some great castings and that, but I felt like it got even less detached. And I remember, because I was so, from Man of Steel, I was so into Henry Cavill's Superman and the trajectory of that. I was like, this is great. He was being the thing which was being removed steadily from everything, from start to finish. Like, I mean, I enjoyed every part he had in Batman vs Superman because that felt natural. But in Justice League, it was like he's supposed to be like the center of it all, but I was instantly detached again. Like how when I first learned about Superman and that, I felt like I don't care about this Superman anymore. I've got no grounds to relate. There was just there was nothing left of his initial character. He was yet again just super strong, and like the end fight sequence, he just comes in, kicks Steppenwolf's ass. He's like lifting buildings with one hand, smiling and waving at little kids, and just being like the Boy Scout Superman that I hate. And it had none of the like sorrowful, honest portrayals that they tied into everything else they'd done. And I was just like, they've robbed me of Superman. they've made Batman tell jokes, and the film just felt just naff. Didn't do it for me at all.
I'm all the same as that. It just felt hollow, and it just didn't line up with what was before it. And so I'm pretty sure fairly soon after the film came out is when there was talk of what had happened in how Snyder's vision had changed. And there was, I think for a long time there was a rumor that like it was like 70 or 80% of what Snyder had filmed had been cut or reshot by Whedon, and all this rumors. So there was a big push for the Snyder Cut and for him to do something. And for a long time, it sort of didn't look like anything was gonna happen.
100%. I remember we had this discussion at that kind of stage where we were both like, I want that film, but we're like, don't know if any of these rumors are true. But we were totally like, I remember it literally being in the car with you once, and we were like, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, I think when we saw Aquaman, and it made
God.
so much money and was so popular.
You love Aquaman,
and we both.
Oh God, no.
What?
Nowhere near it.
Wow.
but I'm pretty sure we were in the car back from that, and we were saying this thing's made so much money for Warner's, and it's done so well that we can't see a world in which they'd give Zack
give it back to Zack,
because it's just so tonally different. Like Aquaman was so bright and so colourful and happy,
vivid, isn't it?
In your face,
and it has Pitbull in the soundtrack. What?
Which is just a mile away from where it was, and you kind of think like, okay, this is DC's new direction. They're going for this. But meanwhile, in the background, there's still rumblings of people wanting a Snyder Cut. There's banners. There's airplane flyovers saying release the Snyder Cut. There's Zack teasing black and white images on his Vero and Twitter and whatnot else. And all the while, you get little bits of cast and crew saying that they worked on the production and what was shot wasn't what you saw, and actors saying they weren't pleased with it because what they put
Affleck wasn't pleased with it, was he? That's the thing. He loved playing Batman from what you get. But
he like, left the role because of it.
Do you know what? I think the biggest sell for me on actors, because like, although like you read all these internet stories, I'm very skeptical. I'm like, did they say that? Meh. And unless I saw it come out of their own lips in a video, I'd be like, right. I saw so little of anything other than like, obviously like the snippets Zack was releasing and things like that. You're like, a lot of this, anyone could have told me this, right? But the one I remember was there was a Syrian Hines, so the guy who does the voice of Steppenwolf, and it was like the most damning thing. And there's like someone asking him, like on the red carpet or some premiere or preview thing, after he's seen the film, and they're like, "Oh, what did you think of the movie?" And his instant response, and this guy's like sick actor, like in Game of Thrones, everything else anyone stood him in, like the guy's like awesome, cool guy. And he's like, I don't want to like mince his words, but he's like, honestly, he's like, that was not the film that we all worked so hard to create.
Yeah,
and that's
I
it.
remember
and
seeing
it's just
it,
like, oh man, it's like even Syrian Hines hates it. And the guy seems so chill, like he absolutely disgusted. So it did help build the hype engine.
Yeah, there was
especially for the movement. Yeah,
and I think as well, just before we get to where we are now, the other thing that then they were doing while they were campaigning for release the Snyder Cut is that they tied it in with a charity for suicide awareness. And up to date, I think they've raised like $500,000 in just pushing release the Snyder Cut, which is huge. I think that's a great kind of cause to jump in on and to give fans what they want, but also support charity, I think is a really kind of honest,
noble. Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately all it is that fans really care about this film and want to see what they thought they were going to get. And so finally, last year, on the anniversary, all the actors start tweeting out hashtag release the Snyder Cut. There's movement, there's excitement. And then finally this year in May, I think it was, is when we found out that Zack had got a call in that November period to say, can you show us what you got? And so now here we are. We've got 2 trailers, which are basically the same. One's in black and white with a few extra footage.
Right.
And we've been told it's a mini-series, which is going to be 4 hours, releasing on HBO Max.
We don't have HBO Max, so do we?
No, so I don't know how it's releasing internationally. They said they'd tell people about that closer to the date.
Super.
Yes. Everybody seems really excited about it. Everybody seems keen. They did a little bit of pickup footage, which, from what Zack said the other day, they filmed only an additional 4 minutes. So whatever they did film, it wasn't a lot if it's just 4 minutes.
4 minutes of just Jared Leto's.
Yes, we've got Jared Leto's Joker in it, which I really hope is a nightmare sequence. And yeah, here it is. We're on the cusp of seeing this thing which has been talked about for several years, kind of unprecedented as well. Like, I struggle to think of, like, the only other one I can kind of think of is Blade Runner, where there's like so many cuts of that film to ultimately get to the final cut.
I mean, it's going to keep happening now, isn't it, with these sort of films? If there's a bad version, directors, I mean, everybody said they wanted the Suicide Cut as well, didn't they? But that's David Ayer said he's not interested in it.
I think from what I can see, I think he is, but I don't think they've given it to him. I think, because I keep seeing his tweets, and he keeps he said recently that they cut the first 40 minutes. Like, the first 40 minutes of his film isn't there. And he keeps he's sort of doing what Zack did last year, I guess, where he's kind of releasing like little tidbits to kind of keep people excited. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if after the Snyder Cut, if the Snyder Cut goes down well, I wouldn't be surprised if they do the Ayer cut, just because
I would love to see the Suicide Squad extended cut as well. Just
I think it's an easier job as well. Like, in the Zack's there's loads of visual effects which wasn't finished, but the Suicide Squad, from what I understand, is like it was done. They finished it and then it got
they just chopped it afterwards, didn't they? Yeah,
chopped up. So, what are your hopes for the Snyder Cut then? Here we are, it's happening.
Oof. I think
what are your dreams?
Part of it is just, I'm super excited that just knowing that Zack gets to finish the film that he wanted to, that there's no limitations, that there's not going to be a case of they've focus grouped it or they've stepped in here because it's too dark. This is completely unadulterated, the Snyder Cut. It's everything. So I think if it comes out and it's bad or people don't enjoy it, then you just know that his vision for it and the direction he went with it isn't right. But if it comes out and you're like, actually, that's exactly the same as Man of Steel and it's exactly the same as Batman vs Superman, that what he's done is all along he's just continued his storyline. He's just had a set vision for where he's taking these characters, and I think that's all I want. I want it to be tonally in line with everything, as well as I want more Nightmare and Darkseid. And I think both of those things are there. I mean, they're in the teaser. There's the shot of the Nightmare kind of sequence, and from the looks of it, Darkseid's there. And I saw Zack saying as well, which this again changes the context of what they did in the theatrical, but that whole sequence where it's the old gods facing off against, in the theatrical, Steppenwolf, which is an awesome sequence. Like, I love that. You see like Green Lantern flying around, everybody's going nuts. Awesome. So that in the Snyder Cut is Darkseid coming to Earth to get the anti-life equation. And so like the red lava or whatever it is, that's just the visual aesthetic of the anti-life equation. There was like no mention of that in the theatrical cut whatsoever. That whole scene is built around Steppenwolf just getting the mother box. And so now that scene is like a whole other thing, knowing that that's Darkseid's kind of big moment. Like, if that's the entrance to Darkseid as well, in terms of like he landed on Earth for everybody and still got his hands on it, that's a pretty strong introduction to him, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's all it is for me. It's just seeing the the complete vision of just what he set out to do, and told with no missing parts, like in 4 hours, I think it's going to be pretty clear. So yeah, that's kind of my hopes with it, I think.
Very much the same, really. I think, like, fundamentally, it is just like a triumph that it's happened, because it's a victory for, like, just morally, for everything Snyder's like worked towards. And like, I don't know if it's the exacting thing of it, but it was like he had family tragedy and it all collapsed from there. And it's like he never got the opportunity to finish what I think was at least the trilogy that he planned is like, when you've started working on something and he'd invested in as much time as he had into that project, I feel like for a creator, it's only fair that they let him see it through. So I think the fact that people have like united to get to like, you know, side with Zack Snyder and get him back on, you know, back in charge of the ship which he set sail initially, I think that's like pure poetry. Like this is like what it should be. And I remember initially, like I said, with Nick, I was like, yeah, it's never going to happen, just because just the way the world is. Like it's usually, more often than not, it's money before creativity. And I felt like if I was the Warner Brothers that I expect they were or are or were at the time, I wouldn't have given it Zack, because it wouldn't benefit me. I was thinking, like, if they let him do it and it was shit, it's a waste of money. And if they let him do it and it's really good, they're kind of shitting on their own doorstep, because they've just released a version that isn't his version, and we're like, this is the one. And they've gone, and we're carrying on from here with Aquaman. So I felt like they wouldn't make that decision. So I'm glad like people got together to do it, and I think it's right that it exists. So I'm super thrilled that it's happening, big style. But no, my hopes for it are that it just, like Nick says, just ties off everything he wanted nicely. And I feel like everything I've heard, if it's true, and everything I've seen thus far, doesn't ring any alarm bells. The only minor gripe I have currently is with all the imagery I've seen. This might change when it comes out, but I feel like it still kind of looks unfinished. Like, I don't know about you guys, but some of the CGI in some of the shots, there's like the bit where Flash saves, he pokes through the glass window. Iris, that's it. So he runs out and stops it. And as you watch the car like tumble and explode in the background, it's like, oh, looked a bit clunky, or like just certain things don't look quite crisp. And I remember I said this to Nick when I saw the trailer when it came out. I was like, yeah, great material, but the presentation, I was like, oh, I really hope it's really clean. And they put out as well, I remember when they showed the shot of Steppenwolf holding the mother box when he's in like Themyscira. I saw, the first time I saw that shot made me feel like when I first saw the shot of Affleck as Batman by the Batmobile. I was like, that is the perfect villain. It's so good. And obviously that's not what I thought of Batman. If that was the perfect, I was like, that's the perfect Batman. But like when I saw the Steppenwolf one, having seen the original like end credits thing with Jesse Eisenberg speaking to Steppenwolf, and then he obviously changes to the version that was in the theatrical Justice League, you're like, big gap.
Yeah.
And so to see the in the flesh version of the hologram or whatever it was that Lex is looking at, I was like, oh, that is perfection. But then there were certain things that came out later. So there's just with this newest trailer release, with the black and white one, they released a shot of Steppenwolf, which is pretty like crisp, of him holding the mother box, and I was like, doesn't look great.
Yeah, getting a lot of shit on social media as well, isn't it?
Has it really?
Yeah, it has like loads. I think it is definitely still. I think they're still fine tuning the CG.
Oh, for sure. I remember with Avengers: Infinity War, they showed the trailer for that where Thanos shows up, and I was like, man, doesn't look. It looks weird. I couldn't pin it. You know, he like comes through the portal in the trailer. I remember that shot, and I was like, oh, not sure. And then obviously the film came out, and it's incredible. So if it's got the same care and attention that I think Zack and whoever's on board would want, I think that's going to be ironed out. But that was literally the only thing I've looked at since seeing the trailer, where I've gone, ooh, not sure. But everything else, I love. I love the fact Affleck's back on board. I think that's a lot of. It feels like a lot of the stuff that's gone on in the build up to this are due to a lot of individual tragedies with a lot of the cast. Like, I know obviously Zack Snyder with his daughter. I think Ben Affleck was having a lot of personal problems during the filming of the Justice League that were behind the scenes. I think there's a lot of stuff with Ray Fisher, Cyborg actor, that's coming out in social media and stuff now, that he's reporting about the treatment of the actors and stuff for Justice League. And I feel like if this film does everything that it's planned to do, it will be whether they make a sequel or it just ends with this. I feel like if it does well, and if it's everything we hope it will be, it'll be just the perfect round of applause, just to be right, thank God, literally, not to sound cheesy, but justice prevailed, as it were. It'll be done. I could happily have, if it goes down well, I could have Zack Snyder sign off, and I'd be I salute you. That's sweet, and they can do whatever they want from then. But yeah,
good or bad, the Flash film is the thing. Good or bad, the Flash film, whether it's a roaring success or it's a negative, then either Zack Snyder can stay on and oversee things again, or the Flash can rewrite things, can't it?
True.
Yeah, it's interesting as well with the Flash, because just before you kind of get into your hopes and dreams of the film, Luke, I think the impression I get of DC now in terms of how they're handling their films is that you're not going to have the MCU setup. You're not going to have everything connected. I think it's going to be pocket universes. I think it's going to be you can go and watch Matt Reeves' Batman, which will never connect to Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. You can watch Aquaman, which might connect to Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, or Flash, or whatever. But I think they will exist in their own bubbles, and there will be a case of you can just go watch those films if you've not seen the others. Because if you look at something like Shazam, that seems, as much as it's referencing the wider universe, the trajectory for it seems like it's very
on its own.
It's this whole thing is just about Shazam and Black Adam. It's not going to be about Shazam in the Justice League or whatever. It feels like it's its own small thing. They've obviously had Joker, which was a huge success, which is again pocket universe. I think what the Flash will do is create that for them. So as opposed to I think I've seen a bit of buzz on it online where people have kind of said the Flash is what it's going to do is reset the universe to the point where then they can restart and build up to another Justice League film. I think what it's going to do is reset the universe and go, our approach is now all of these different stories, so you can have three different Batman films if you want, with 3 different Batman.
That's the smart thing to do, isn't it? That's what they need. That's what it should. I mean, for me, the build-up now has to be, if Darkseid comes and goes or whatever happens, that they could work towards. I don't know if Harry's familiar with the huge thing at the moment. That's the next. Black Adam is obviously going to be a big bad, but if it's the multiverse hopping thing, and this guy who's jumping between multiverses, that could be the link. And then you could get Affleck's Batman and Patterson's Batman teaming up with, obviously they're saying with the Flash that they're going to have Michael Keaton's Batman as well and Affleck's Batman. But that could be the thing. This Justice League could be an absolutely massive, huge deal when you link the HBO shows. We saw it with Crisis on Infinite Earths, didn't we, in the TV series as well, with both the Flashes. So I think there's a lot of hope after whatever happens with this, but I don't have my expectations are so low for this because of the trailers and what I've hoped for, and I was disappointed in these trailers because I didn't think I saw enough that looked different. I think it felt like I saw bits from the original trailer, and then you saw a couple of new bits, a couple of redesigns. Obviously, Darkseid is the big thing, but there's nothing. There's a lot of things in that trailer that's just Superman's in his black suit now, where he was in his blue suit in the theatrical trailer, and it's not purple skies, it's dark skies, so it's gritty again.
Do you know what?
I worry that there's not a lot is going to, even though it's 4 hours, there's going to be, you'll get more cyborg backstory, you get more of the demon stuff, but the end result, it will feel very similar. Not frustrated because it's all muddled together, but I'm just worried I'm going to come out and think that was not worth the wait. But you're right in the terms of that, to get a conclusion and for Snyder to finally wrap up his story with it, and so he can move on with it, and what all the fans want to see it, then I'm just not expecting big things, but I want to. I really want it to work out well.
I can tag in on the lack of expectation though massively, because I think what doesn't help its case is that it is essentially, it's not, hopefully not going to be the same, because that's mad, but it's essentially a re-release of a film. So the trailer does not have the initial buzz anymore. And I remember, it's not like you're watching a trailer for the first time at all, because you're right. I think a lot of the things you see in the trailer are kind of, you're like, I've seen this, I know where this is going, and that you're kind of given like the new version of something you already saw. So like you're saying with the Dark Side instead of Steppenwolf, you're like, yep, seen it, because you actually have. So I think what the problem with Justice League is, if that hadn't existed and this Snyder Cut had been the first one, you'd have watched the trailer and be like, oh my god, straight up Dark Side.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? And you've I think the annoying thing is, everyone has been kind of robbed of the first viewing kind of thing, because the excitement of seeing something for the first time isn't actually there, and it won't be until you watch it. Because we'll be, especially us three, having seen both, we're all going to be watching it from the same standpoint of we're trying to see what is new. So all the good bits which we saw were Zack Snyder's work from Justice League won't impress us, because we've already seen them, right? Yeah. So I think our experience will hang massively on the additional stuff we haven't seen. So anything trailer-wise, I think it does fall a bit short. That's just either a refresh of the initial material or is material you've already seen, because we're like, yep, seen it.
I think as well with the trailer, I think part of the reason that my excitement for it is because I completely get what you mean, that in the trailer it's really similar to the Comic-Con trailer. There isn't a lot there that you kind of go like, that's different. I took the trailer as more like a subtle kind of, here's all the things that you've been saying were wrong with the theatrical cut. Here's the Steppenwolf design, here's the Dark Side bit, here's the red skies, here's these things presented to you correctly in a trailer. So it's like, as opposed to me showing you all the 2.5 hours of footage that you haven't seen, I just want to let you know that I'm making the thing that you've been asking for. So it wasn't so much kind of going like, I'm going to present you a new trailer for a film that you're going to go, what the fuck? That's 2.5 hours of new footage. I'm just going to present you the trailer that's going to go, oh, okay, they're on track to make the film that I've been asking for. Because, I mean, the trailer was released at Fandom. The whole thing is about fans. So that trailer to me very much feels like a fan-oriented trailer. I mean, the whole Snyder Cut is a fan project, really, but the trailer very much feels like that. Like, when I watched it again, when they re-released it, it still feels like that. It still feels like they're hanging on to the moments that people have gone like, where's Dark Side? Or where's the black suit? It highlights all of those moments to give you those moments so you can go like, oh, there's something there. I do wonder whether, I think what it hangs on is the next proper trailer. Like, whenever they give it a date, I think the next trailer, a lot hangs on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for me, footage. That I'm saying here that I don't want to get sucked in by trailers again, but I think the reveal date trailer for me is what's going to either put me on track to be like, I cannot wait to watch this, as compared to now where I think, yeah, I really want it to be signed off on and done and dusted, because I'm obviously, I mean, you say about how much you love the Batman Super film. Obviously, any good film, if you're still talking about it a few years later, even if it's something you're into, then it's had some impact, hasn't it, in seeing it. So critics and stuff, you can look at Rotten Tomatoes and see that it's 30% or whatever it is, but it's obviously something there, isn't there? I'm pretty excited. Would you watch it that's what I was going to ask you. Would you watch it all in one go and wait for all 4 to come out, or are you going to watch it as in its installments?
Because I can't wait, I'll watch it in installments. But I will. It's like a comic book, isn't it? In that this is very much like a comic book in that you read. It's a 4-part miniseries, so you either read the singles and then you read the whole graphic novel, or you just wait for the graphic novel.
I'm going to wait for the graphic novel.
Oof, big.
How are they doing it, like weekly then, or
They haven't said. It's just 4 chapters.
Okay.
So they could launch
chapters,
4 chapters at the same time. And
like Netflix it. Yeah,
comes later, but
I think they'll spread it out. I think they'll say it's the first of the month of something, and then it'll be for the next 4 weeks. And it'll be a huge, because it depends. That's the other worry, isn't it? Is it all about money? Has Zack Snyder said this is all got offer, and they're like, yeah, it's all right, but here we go. Let's spread out over 4 months. We get a bunch of new subscribers, because you got to remember, if they do it as 4 parts as well, if they release one bit a month, then people are going to have to subscribe for 4 months.
Yeah.
If they do it for a month, then they might sign up for the free trial, and then they don't get any money.
You're right.
There's some bonuses to it. It's like with something like His Dark Materials now. Like the first episode's out now. We don't subscribe to HBO Nordic at the moment, but we've learned just to wait until it's all there and we can watch it, because that and Lovecraft Country, they're the 2 things we're going to watch. But if it's all out, we could just watch it in one go. That's what I did with Watchmen. But if they spread it out so much, you've got no choice but to either wait 4 months or 5 months effectively to get it all. So there's a little bit of me. That's probably why I'm skeptical as well, because I do think that it could just be random chunks of things put together, but then all the actors and stuff saying how hard they worked on it makes me feel slightly confident that there's something there. So
yeah, I think that's definitely the big thing that I hold on to, is that there seems to be a sense of like everybody who was on the production crew and who's talked about it in the years since the theatrical one came out, and the cast, and obviously Zack and stuff, everybody who seems to have talked about it as this like labor of love, that they all invested something into making it, and what came out wasn't even 10% of what they'd worked really hard on. And so you kind of think, like, if everybody is that excited about it and that passionate about it, there's got to be, like, it has to work. It can't not work.
And I think as well, when something's a passion project, it's kind of like you can tell the difference, can't you? Like if you look at something that's like a profit project, if you will, like they're doing it because they know it's popular and they make money, it's 50-50 whether it will land. But I think if you manage to convince a load of people who are talented to help you out on something that you're working on that you think has potential, and they all are invested in it and believe it is as good as you've promoted it to them, and they're all happy to work on it, everyone's been on board, and like it's been a group effort, it just makes everything's instantly much improved if everyone's as invested in it as everyone else. And this is definitely a project led by like personal investments, so I feel like it is like it would be wrong in my mind if it wasn't any good. Do you know what I mean?
I think there's, just from the people involved, I think they know they have something, and I think it's twofold in terms of the cynicism and the optimism, in that I think HBO Max are very clever to have put it out this way, and that they're like, we don't have a lot of content that's new, because a lot of the content on HBO Max is just HBO, so this is an exclusive HBO Max product.
Yep.
And this is a big selling point. Like, if we get this, good or bad, people are going to watch it because people are just curious. So there's a lot of that. But then the optimist in me, it goes that if you've liked Man of Steel and if you've liked the extended cut of Batman vs Superman, you've liked what Zack's presented with these characters, you've liked the vision that he's got, and so what you get next, you sort of have the optimism and the faith to go, he's carried that plot line through. Like, it's not going to be a different director, it's not a different writer, this thing hasn't gone through focus groups, it's not gone through anybody but him, it's just purely filtered by Zack. And so I think it is a tough balance of kind of going, do I get overly hyped about it because I'm optimistic, or do I just lean into the cynicism of it and go, like, this thing could just be, you know, an in-betweener kind of thing that's just is going to come out and it will go, cool, that was fine, was what it was. At least I know now. But I don't know. It's
one thing.
tough.
One thing I'm hugely amped for is the fact that he's brought back Junkie XL to redo the score.
Oh my god! Yeah. Danny Elfman on Sorry to Cut Yourself. Like,
yeah, I know exactly.
I can't remember anything from that score. Like, if somebody played that to me and said this is Danny Elfman, I legit wouldn't have known. There's nothing.
It's crazy,
in it that
right? Isn't it? Because
Danny Elfman.
I love Danny Elfman, and I think like the theme he did for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film, that's my favourite Spider-Man theme. Like, I'm not going to say favourite Spider-Man film because that would be a lie.
Amazing
but that Danny Elfman score is amazing. Like, it's so good. And like, when they said Danny Elfman was doing Justice League, I was like, oh, do you know what? Like, that could be great. And I was like, Hans Zimmer was like did he leave doing films or superhero films or something at one point?
I think he dropped in superhero
backed out a bit,
and
but
then
so it was like
Sure.
So it's like he's going, and I was like, that's a shame. And then when they said they're bringing Dan Elfman, I was like, oh, that's great, because if he smashes out a Justice League theme that's got singing in it, can you imagine? Like Ben Affleck is leading the solo. But if he'd done something which was as good as the theme he did for the Spider-Man films, and it was like Justice League, I was like, that could be incredible. And I thought he would pay more respect to the stuff that Zack and Hans Zimmer had put in place for like Wonder Woman and things like that. I thought there'd be more of that, which there was not.
Yeah,
so,
sorry.
Yeah, when they said Junkie XL's back.
Yeah, sorry. What I meant to say there was that I think Hans Zimmer left before they started making Justice League, and so it was just Junkie XL, and then Junkie XL wrote basically the whole score for Justice League.
I'm with you.
Then Whedon came on, and because they were changing the tone, they sacked Junkie XL, and put in Elfman.
Oh shit! Okay.
And so Junkie XL, I saw a thing with him recently, I think for Fandom, where he like played a little bit of the score and talked about it, and it was very much like, you get the impression that he was like, yeah, I had the whole film written, like I've got everything, so I didn't really have to do a lot. But he said the approach to it is just a case of going back and kind of the things you've learned over the last few years you now implement on an older score. But I think that also shows that, I know for a long time there was this big chat about whether the Snyder Cut existed, was it a real thing, or was it just some fantasy? I think the fact that Junkie XL had the whole score written shows that there was a film, because I'm pretty like, it's super rare for a composer to write a score, like a whole score, without the film being presented as like a full cut.
No material, and just made a score.
Like it's really rare. Like that's like Joker level, like, and that's
it's
a big thing, but huge. But so I always kind of held on to that I was like, well, if the composer is saying that I wrote a score, like I've got it here, how can you kind of argue there isn't a film? Because so I think you're right there, that the score will be a big difference, because again, that sets the tone. And to kind of bring this round a little bit and to wrap it up, the thing that I'm excited about the most is the opening scene, because as we've said, like all three of us have said it, the opening scene of these films has really set the bar. That Man of Steel was this like big opener, you're just like, fuck, that's Krypton. Batman vs Superman is, all about like Bruce's interpretation of that. And I'm pretty sure this could be a rumor, and I might have read it somewhere just when I was on a Zack Snyder binge, but I'm pretty sure I read someone say the opening of the Snyder Cut, Zack said it's Superman's death, but from Bruce's perspective. So it's like Bruce.
Perfect.
Yeah, that is the opening. Like, it's way better than the opening of the theatrical cut with Superman being like asked a question on a phone, and it just looks shit, and it's like, I don't know what you're trying to convey here, and it feels like everything is lined up for it to work. But there is this kind of feeling of like, they've stabbed me in the back before. Kind of don't know.
I feel more optimistic after this talk on this podcast. I feel a little bit more optimistic that things are going to be okay with the our thoughts on the whole thing. I I don't know, like you said with like Shazam and stuff, I quite enjoyed Shazam. I didn't like
Shazam.
Aquaman. I enjoyed Wonder Woman. But this for me is probably going to make or break my connection to the DCU. I mean, I'll always go and see them. I'll always watch Shazam 2. I'd probably watch Aquaman 2, even put myself through that, just because I always want to see these superhero films. But I don't think I would trust the DCU films if this is just a complete mess as well, because it's just if it's just a money grab, which I don't think it is, but if it ends up being like that and everyone just comes out of it feeling just so let down, then I'll be done, I think.
I definitely think critically, I don't think it's going to work.
No, I think it's going to get panned by critics, but I imagine it's, again, you say like the Rotten Tomato thing, if it's a 14% on critics, but it's 97% fans.
I think the critics are going to hate it for like two reasons. I think there's going to be, firstly, it's going to continue that same dark, brooding. It's not really a happy film. I think it's going to be somber as fuck, especially considering Superman is dead and he comes back alive. Like,
but that depends on if the critics are like, that was a lot better than the fucking Justice League theatrical cut.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know how.
Do you know what though? I feel like critics are going to hate it because if they are proven wrong, like anyone who's proven wrong about anything 90% of the time who's opinionated will instantly just be like, I hate it. Even if, like, so it comes out and it's the sickest film ever, right? Like, and I'm not saying it will be, but say it comes out and everyone's like, that is the definitive superhero film. Critics who, in the build-up to it, who have been like, Justice League was shit, it's going to be shit because it's Zack Snyder, his other material is shit, it's all depressing, it's shit, it's not going to happen. Those people will be pissed off that it has happened, so they'll be winding up to like rip the shit out of it, and when it's good, it will just aggravate them more. So I think definitely critically, unfortunately, it's already ready to take a battering. But I feel like it's, like you say, it's a film made, like a lot of the cast said, for the fans. So I think if I came out of the film and I was like, that was amazing, even if the internet and everyone else in the universe thought it was shit, I would be happy because I'd be like, do you know what? I feel like I'm in it for the crescendo, if you know what I mean. And if it goes out with a bang, like it's meant to have done, as it feels like the whole film feels like a myth that's coming to life. So if that, I'm sweet with it, even if everyone else hates it. But yeah, fuck the critics, right? Like, screw them. Yeah. Fuck critics. Flat out. All of you critics out there listening to this podcast. Anyone who hates this podcast, anyone who hates Zack Snyder, just stop. Just stop. Take a look at yourself. It's not big. It's not clever.
Yeah, we all
no
love
one
Joker,
cares what you think.
Joker.
Yeah. I actually do, right?
I know.
I mean, wait. Oh, do you?
He's all right.
Oh, man.
That is one thing that is, like, we didn't quite touch on. We'll touch on it now just briefly before we go. But Zack's already said he's got like a completely different look, that he's like road weary. Which
nightmare, surely.
In my head is like, that is the nightmare Joker. First of all, Jared Leto is the first person to ever play the Joker twice in a live action film.
Whoa.
Said this. It's huge. Yeah. Big. That alone is, whether you like them or not, that's actually mental. Like, I remember hearing this, and like, don't get me wrong, I think the staple of all Jokerisms is 100% Mark Hamill. And he's voice acted Joker for donkey's years, and he's literally gold standard. Like, if you want a comic accurate, like living, breathing version of the Joker, I think it's Mark Hamill. So respect to you, my man. But I think, like, for no one to have reprised the role of the Joker is like insane, because I don't have anything against any of the Jokers that have been presented to me. Literally, I love them all because I think the character of the Joker is so obscure. Every interpretation of it is valid. Like, if you're making a film about an insane person, anyone who goes, oh, he wouldn't do that, is like, well, he's insane. So, like, I think all interpretations are valid, from like Cesar Romero all the way up to like Joaquin Phoenix. They're all great. I literally love all of them, and I can take parts of every single one and mash it and be like, yep, they're great. I love it. It's the Joker. They're all like an essential part of the character. But for no one to have done it twice is like
Crazy.
live action
Yeah,
is wild.
bonkers.
So I think it's great that they've finally done it, and I think Leto is a good choice for it because he's another person with the whole reshoot culture and all that's going on. That's I think has suffered for it, whether or not people like the role. There was very little of him, and apparently a lot was filmed. So I think for him to be brought into this, even if it's like a one scene thing, like a nightmare sequence, I'm super up for it. And if they change the look, all the better, because I love the original look as well.
I like the original look as well.
Yeah, I thought it was different. Like that's what I love about it. Like I said, none of the Jokers have been the same, and I think it's nice to have like extremes of the character. And the Leto one is like a creepy Marilyn Manson gangster mashup, and I'm like, I love it. Like that's brilliant. I remember the first image coming out, and I was like, that's fucking amazing. I was like, I remember looking at it and be like, that is going to offend people, and it's loud, and like I was like, that is the point of the Joker. He's not. People made a big thing about him being like, he's become like a pop culture icon. So people who have, and I remember Heath Ledger massively nailed this, is that like everyone has like a go-to Joker, whereas I think I've been more of like I just appreciate the Joker. So slap me him in any attire, doing any crazy shit, and I'm in. Like if Jared Leto's Joker showed up in a fucking gimp suit, A1, I'd be like, that's outrageous. I love it. So like I'm fully down. And I'd love to see what Zack does with Leto's Joker too. I think that's destined to be right up my street. Yeah. Purely on the premise that I will just open my mouth for any of that material. Like I'm in 100%.
Strong words. Power.
Strong words.
Yeah.
What more can be said?
Fingers crossed, guys. We are doing a podcast in the future talking about the Snyder Cut and how amazing it was.
Yes.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
That was good. Hope everyone enjoyed listening to it. The next podcast that we're going to do is going to be the first volume of our Star Wars podcast, which is going to focus on the original trilogy. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Harry, for joining us.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I wish you ever continued success with this endeavour. I love listening to it, and I just feel very sad that I can't talk back to you most of the time. So this has been fun. Cheers for getting me in.
When we do a Joker podcast, we'll invite you on.
Yeah.
It will just be you guys like, now sit down. How long have we got? You guys will interject. I'll be like, no, I haven't finished. There's so much material.
All right. Well, take care then, guys.
You too, dude.
Yeah, take it easy,
All right.
man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.